Have you ever walked into a room, a space that should feel as familiar and warm as your own skin, only to feel a sudden, inexplicable chill? A conversation might continue, smiles might be offered, but something in the atmosphere has shifted. A compliment is given, yet it lands not like a soft petal, but like a tiny shard of glass, leaving a sting you can't quite name. As we journey through the later chapters of our lives, our senses for these subtle emotional currents become exquisitely refined. We are no longer just listening to words, we are feeling the dissonant music beneath them. And sadly, not all of this music comes from a place of love. Some of it emanates from the dark, quiet corners of another person's heart, from envy, from bitterness, and from a buried resentment that finally dares to surface when they believe we are too tired, too slow, or perhaps too old to notice. The brilliant psychoanalyst Carl Jung once remarked, "Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves." This is a profound truth about self-awareness. But its inverse is equally and often more painfully true. What irritates others about us can reveal their own unconscious truths. The way people act, the words they choose, and most powerfully, the words they withhold, often broadcast the hidden contents of their soul. As we age, these broadcasts, once faint static, can become piercingly clear. This is not a reflection of paranoia or oversensitivity. It is a testament to a lifetime spent observing human nature. It is wisdom. Today, we are going to delve into a difficult but necessary topic. We will explore 7 quiet, almost invisible signs that someone in your orbit, a friend, family member, a neighbor, may secretly resent or even harbor a quiet animosity towards you, all while masking it with a veneer of politeness or worse, a suffocating form of passive-aggressive care. Recognizing these signs is not about seeking conflict or collecting grievances. It is about emotional self-preservation. It is an act of profound self-respect to protect your heart, your dignity, your time, and your irreplicable peace of mind. So, if you are navigating your 60s, 70s, 80s, or beyond, and have felt that unsettling shift in the way people treat you, a little colder, a little more dismissive, a little less present, then this journey is for you. You are not imagining things, and you do not have to endure it in silence. Sign 1. The glacial drift of coldness in small moments. There is a particular species of silence that bears no resemblance to peace. It is not the restorative quiet of a sleeping house or the contemplative hush of a library. This is a pointed, weaponized silence. It's the abrupt cessation of chatter when you enter a room. The conversational thread dropped as if it were red hot. It's the lighthearted comment you offer that lands with a dull thud in a void of response. No shared laughter, no meeting of the eyes, just an unnerving pause that hangs in the air, forcing you to rewind your own words and question your intent. These are not mere awkward moments. They are seismic tremors hinting at a deeper fault line in the relationship. Carl Jung wrote extensively that what a person withholds from you often tells a more honest story than what they express. In the landscape of aging, these withheld words, the absent affirmations, the unspoken kindnesses can carve deeper wounds than any overt insult. You may begin to notice a pattern. Someone who once checked in with you frequently, sharing the small details of their day, now rarely initiates contact. When you reach out, their replies are delayed, terse, and devoid of the warmth that once characterized your exchanges. They are perpetually so busy when you are around, avoiding any opportunity for a lingering conversation. Crucially, they stop asking about you. Your life, your health, your thoughts cease to be a subject of their curiosity. On the surface, this behavior can be easily excused. They're just preoccupied, we tell ourselves. Life is hectic. But deep down, our intuition, honed by decades of experience, knows better. This coldness is a quiet but deliberate form of emotional distancing, a gradual pushing away. It's a way of rendering you insignificant without the messiness of a direct confrontation. The reason this behavior becomes more pronounced around older individuals is rooted in a sad, transactional view of human value that pervades modern society. Some people, whether consciously or not, begin to devalue those who they perceive can no longer offer them something tangible in return, be it professional connections, financial support, social status, or even youthful energy. The core tone here is the pain of emotional invisibility. When someone you care for begins to treat your presence as if it were wallpaper, your voice holding no weight, your stories becoming a boring interruption, it is often rooted in an unspoken judgment they harbor. More often than not, it stems from a resentment they lack the courage to voice aloud. Perhaps they resent your perceived freedom in retirement, or conversely, your increased needs. Perhaps your presence simply reminds them of their own mortality, a reality they would rather ignore. The most important step you can take is to refuse to internalize this coldness as a reflection of your worth. As you get older, your energy becomes your most precious currency. You must learn to be a fierce guardian of it. This includes recognizing when to stop extending your warmth to people who consistently meet it with an indifferent frost. Coldness is not always a passive state. It is often a calculated decision. It is a clear and unambiguous sign that someone no longer sees your presence as a gift. Trust that feeling in your gut. It is your wisdom speaking. And if someone is showing you this kind of quiet, persistent distance, believe them the first time. That was the first quiet sign, a foundational chill that can precede more overt behaviors. If this insight about emotional coldness resonates with you, and you recognize its importance in protecting your peace, please let us know by commenting with the number 1 below. It helps us understand what content is most valuable to you. Sign 2, the slow poison of undermining and passive remarks. Not all animosity announces itself with a scowl or a raised voice. Sometimes the most corrosive form of resentment comes wrapped in the guise of politeness, a tight smile, or what some people defensively call just being honest. You'll recognize it not necessarily in the words themselves, but in the subtle, condescending tone that carries them. You're still driving at your age? How brave. Oh, I didn't expect you to know how to use that app. Good for you. You're remembering that wrong. I was there. I know what happened. Individually, these comments might seem small, like insignificant paper cuts, but when they accumulate, day after day, week after week, they begin to paint a disturbing portrait. It's a picture of someone who does not admire you, but who quietly resents you and is using these microaggressions to chip away at your confidence. Carl Jung's concept of the shadow, the hidden, often unconscious part of our personality that houses the emotions we are ashamed to admit, like envy, rage, and insecurity, is powerfully at play here. As you grow older, your continued existence, your wisdom, your resilience, or even your peace can act as a mirror, forcing others to see their own shadows. Your very presence might remind them of their own aging, their perceived limitations, or their personal and professional failures. Unable or unwilling to confront this inner turmoil, they project it outward. This discomfort metastasizes into snide remarks, incessant corrections, or jokes made at your expense. Make no mistake, this is not good-natured teasing. This is a form of emotional erosion. Imagine Linda, a vibrant 78-year-old who had a lifelong friend named Janet. They met for lunch every week, a ritual that had sustained them for decades. But as Linda continued to age with grace, staying active, taking up painting, and maintaining a genuinely positive outlook, Janet's comments began to sour. Still bothering with all that makeup, are we? It must be nice to have a son who buys you things like that. I wish I had the energy to be gallivanting about all the time." At first, Linda would laugh it off, accustomed to Janet's sometimes prickly nature, but each comment was a small chip in the foundation of their friendship. The lunches, once a source of joy and connection, started to feel like weekly evaluations she was destined to fail. The warmth between them slowly evaporated, replaced by a palpable tension. What used to be a friendship began to feel like a quiet, bitter rivalry. This is the insidious danger of passive hostility. It doesn't roar in like a thunderstorm, giving you a chance to take cover. It drips like a leaky faucet in a dark room, slowly and persistently filling the space with an inescapable dampness and chill. These individuals are not interested in hurting you directly. That would be too obvious, too messy, and would risk social condemnation. Instead, they seek to undermine your sense of self, your competence, and your reality, little by little, hoping you won't notice the pattern. But you do. Your spirit always does. And here is the psychological crux of the matter. They want you to doubt yourself. They want you to shrink just enough for them to feel bigger, more competent, more in control. That is not friendship. That is not love. It is a quiet form of emotional sabotage. Jung warned of this dynamic, noting that when people cannot face their own inner chaos, they often seek to disrupt the peace of those who appear content, confident, or free. They cannot celebrate your peace because it is a glaring reminder of their own unrest. So, if someone in your life consistently has something sarcastic to say, perpetually needs to correct your memories, or habitually highlights your perceived flaws under the thin veil of just kidding, you must learn to trust the pattern over the excuse. It is not light-hearted banter. It is contempt leaking through the cracks of a carefully constructed facade. You deserve to be surrounded by people who speak life into you, not people who question your every move and memory. Protect your energy, and remember, what they are saying is almost never about you. It is a monologue about what they have failed to resolve within themselves. Have you ever been on the receiving end of a backhanded compliment or a subtle put-down that left you feeling confused and hurt? We invite you to share your story or your thoughts in the comments section. Your experience could validate what someone else is going through. And if you find these insights valuable, please comment with the number 2 below. Your engagement, along with a like and subscription, helps us continue to create meaningful content that informs and empowers our community. Remember to hit the notification bell so you never miss a video. Now, let's continue our exploration. Sign 3. A conspicuous absence in moments that matter. Sometimes, the most profound statement a person can make is through their utter and complete absence. What someone doesn't do can often speak with more deafening clarity than any words they could ever utter. They don't call after they hear you've been sick. They don't show up for your milestone birthday celebration. They don't ask how your crucial doctor's appointment went, even though you mentioned you were nervous about it. They don't check in after you've lost a beloved pet, a spouse of 50 years, or even just your footing on a patch of ice. Over time, this cumulative silence becomes a roaring declaration of their true feelings. Carl Jung believed that what we choose to neglect invariably reveals our true priorities. When someone continuously fails to show up for you, not in grand heroic gestures, but in the small, everyday acts of human decency and connection, they are sending an unambiguous message. You are not a priority. Your well-being does not move them. Your pain does not stir them to action. While this may not feel like the loud, dramatic hatred we see in films, it is a profound form of emotional abandonment. And abandonment, when it becomes a pattern, feels remarkably like resentment in its coldest, most indifferent form. Let's talk about Robert, an 82-year-old widower. When his wife passed away after a long illness, the house fell into an unbearable quiet. In the first few weeks, friends came by, neighbors dropped off casseroles, and the community rallied. But his niece, a woman he had helped raise and had always treated like a daughter, did not call. Not that day, not the week after. When he finally, gently reached out to her, her reply was clipped and defensive. "Oh, sorry, Uncle Rob. I've just been so busy." She wasn't too busy, Robert noticed with a heavy heart, to post photos of her vacation on social media. She wasn't too busy to go out with her friends or to binge-watch the latest hit series. She was, however, too busy to spend 5 minutes checking on the man who had bought her first bicycle and proudly walked her down the aisle at her wedding. This isn't mere forgetfulness, it is a choice. It is a calculated allocation of time and emotional energy. When people genuinely care, they find a way. They make the time, they send a text, they leave a voicemail. And when they don't, it's not always because they are malicious or evil. Sometimes it's because they are quietly, methodically withdrawing their affection, their effort, and their respect. They are intentionally letting the relationship wither on the vine, not because they forgot to water it, but because they no longer wish for it to grow. Jung might suggest that when a person cannot lovingly accept a part of themselves, such as their own inevitable aging, their potential for dependence, or their deep-seated loneliness, they may begin to reject anyone who serves as a living reminder of it. This includes you. And so they pull away. They stop checking in. They stop caring, because being around you forces them to confront parts of life and themselves that they have not yet made peace with. It is not just neglect. It is an act of resistance against an uncomfortable truth you represent. This hurts so deeply because being ignored can feel more agonizing than being yelled at. An argument, at least, signifies that you matter enough to stir an emotion. But a profound, enduring silence suggests that you have become invisible, that your very existence has morphed from a presence to be cherished into an inconvenience to be managed. You deserve so much more. You deserve people who remember you exist, especially when things get hard. You deserve a warmth that doesn't vanish the moment you need it most. If you recognize this pattern in someone who consistently disappears when you are down but magically reappears when they need something from you, please believe the pattern. Love does not hide when times get tough. Hidden resentment does. And when you feel that cold, empty space where a loved one used to be, remember this with all your might. It is not your fault that they cannot face your aging, your vulnerability, or even your quiet strength. That is their shadow to grapple with, not your burden to carry. If this analysis of absence and emotional abandonment has shed light on a situation in your own life, consider commenting with the number 3. Sharing that you've gained this insight helps our community grow in awareness and mutual support. Sign 4. The sting of backhanded compliments and veiled put-downs. This sign is particularly insidious because it masquerades as kindness. It is one of the most telling indicators that someone harbors resentment, especially as you age. It is not found in overt criticism, but in the way a compliment is delivered, coated in a thin layer of vinegar that sours the entire sentiment. "You're looking so good for your age. I wish I had as much free time to just relax and nap as you do. It must be so nice that you don't have to worry about keeping up with trends anymore." On the surface, these statements can be brushed off as harmless, perhaps even polite observations. But listen closely to the subtext. Feel the quiet jab that follows the initial praise. The underlying message is one of comparison and subtle demotion. You are lesser now. You are not what you used to be. You exist in a separate, diminished category. Carl Jung wrote often about the shadow, that hidden and denied part of ourselves that holds our anger, envy, and insecurity. People who secretly resent your presence, perhaps your accumulated wisdom, your financial security, or simply your continued vitality, will often project that discomfort through these veiled insults. They won't call you slow, but they will make a conspicuous point of walking far ahead of you and sighing with impatience. They won't say you're forgetful, but they will repeat simple instructions 3 times in a patronizing tone, as if speaking to a child. These actions are not neutral. They are miniature power plays, dressed up in the costume of helpfulness or casual conversation. Let me tell you about Maria, 68, who was once the celebrated matriarch of her family, sharp, witty, and deeply kind. Over time, however, her daughter-in-law began to use family dinners as a stage for little jokes at her expense. "We'd better speak up. Grandma's hearing isn't what it used to be," she'd announce to the table, followed by performative laughter. "Mom, are you sure you want to eat that? Remember what the doctor said." Everyone would chuckle, and Maria would force a smile, but the pattern was undeniable. It was always a jab about her age, her dietary choices, her pace. There were no direct insults, just a quiet, relentless erosion of her dignity week after week. Eventually, Maria began to find excuses to miss the dinners. It wasn't because she didn't love her family, but because the emotional cost of attending, of bracing herself for the next little jab, had become too high. She confided that it wasn't the words themselves that hurt the most. It was the chilling realization that no one else at the table ever stepped in to defend her. The unconscious mind is cunning. It knows how to release resentment in ways that are socially deniable. This is how emotional hostility thrives in plain sight, hiding behind sarcasm, just teasing, and feigned concern. When you are the target, you begin to doubt your own perceptions. Am I being too sensitive? Maybe she didn't mean it that way. But listen to your own emotional response. If something stings, it matters. If someone consistently leaves you feeling small, unimportant, or outdated, it is not a coincidence. That is their internal issues spilling out and contaminating your space. Jung would remind us that what we fail to confront within ourselves, we inevitably project onto others. If someone is deeply uneasy with their own mortality, their own potential for powerlessness, or their own future of aging, they may cope by mocking the very person who embodies these realities. It is far easier than looking at their own reflection in the mirror. You are not on this earth to serve as anyone's emotional punching bag. Aging is not a source of shame. Slowing down is not a failure. Needing rest, help, or patience does not make you a burden. Any person who makes you feel otherwise, whether through obvious jabs or passive-aggressive slights, may be wrestling with a resentment they haven't even admitted to themselves. If you are finding this exploration valuable and it's helping you see your relationships more clearly, please consider commenting with the number 4 below. And if you haven't already, we invite you to subscribe and turn on the notification bell. Your support allows us to continue creating content that fosters understanding and self-respect. Sign 5. The joy vacuum. Withholding happiness when you thrive. A strange and telling silence often settles in the presence of someone who secretly resents you, and it becomes most deafening at the precise moment you are doing well. You might share a piece of good news, perhaps a new hobby that has brought you immense satisfaction, a successful checkup from your doctor, or even something as simple as your garden finally blooming in a riot of color. You share this sliver of light, hoping for it to be reflected back. Instead, you are met with a blank nod, a quick dismissive change of subject, or worse, a subtle eye roll. They just cannot seem to celebrate with you. Carl Jung considered envy to be one of the most hidden and corrosive of human emotions, especially potent in relationships where love is supposed to be the dominant currency. When a person sees you thriving, finding joy, or experiencing a moment of grace in a part of life where they feel stuck, stagnant, or unfulfilled, it can trigger their deepest, unhealed insecurities. Instead of leaning in and sharing your joy, which would require them to be happy for you, they retreat, they detach. They may even find subtle ways to downplay your success or question your happiness. Take the case of George, a 74-year-old who had just returned from a short weekend fishing trip with some old friends. It had been years since he had done something purely for himself, and he came back renewed, beaming with a quiet contentment. When he excitedly told his son about the trip, hoping to share the simple joy of it, his son's response was flat and tinged with bitterness. Must be nice not to have any responsibilities. There was no smile, no follow-up questions, just a swift withdrawal of approval that left George feeling deflated. He said he felt as if he had done something wrong, simply by being happy.
This kind of reaction can send you into a spiral of self-doubt. Did I brag? Was I being insensitive? But the unvarnished truth is that someone who truly loves and respects you wants to see you enjoy life, especially in your later years. If your happiness makes someone else visibly uncomfortable, the issue is not with your joy, it is with their own internal discomfort. They feel a sense of lack, and your contentment is a painful mirror to it. People who resent you often won't confront you directly. Instead, they punish you with silence, with disinterest, with a conspicuous absence of joy. Over time, the weight of this absence becomes heavy. It can make you hesitant to share your good news, hesitant to shine your own light. You begin to self-censor your happiness to manage their reaction. But you were not put on this earth to dim your light so that someone else doesn't have to squint. Jung wrote that one of the greatest and most mature challenges in human relationships is to feel genuine, unadulterated joy for another person's success without allowing our own shadow, our own envy and feelings of inadequacy to get in the way. If someone in your life consistently avoids eye contact when you're happy, fails to ask follow-up questions when you're excited, or most tellingly, only seems to be fully present and engaged when you are complaining or struggling, they may not be hating you in a conscious, deliberate way, but their subconscious is working overtime to ensure that your joy does not outshine their pain, and that is not your responsibility to manage. Growing older means learning to protect your emotional space as fiercely as you protect your physical health. Joy is not a luxury, it is a vital nutrient for the soul. It is one of a handful of precious things we must learn to defend as we age. So, if someone cannot clap for you when you win, cannot share in your delight, or cannot even sit beside you without shrinking when you feel most alive, recognize it for what it is. It is not love. It is quiet bitterness. Do not let it seep into your sense of self. You have earned your joy. Every smile, every small win, every moment of contentment is sacred, and no one has the right to take it from you with a shrug or a sigh. Does this concept of the joy vacuum resonate with an experience you've had? Sharing your insights can be incredibly validating for others. Let us know your thoughts, and if this point was particularly meaningful, please comment with the number 5 to show your engagement. Sign 6. The transactional relationship. They only reach out when they need something. One of the clearest and most disheartening signs of secret resentment isn't loud or aggressive. It is purely transactional. You slowly cease to be a person in their life and are demoted to the role of a resource. The phone calls just to chat disappear. They no longer ask how you are feeling or what you did over the weekend. But when they need something, a last-minute babysitter, a loan to cover a bill, a ride to the airport, your signature on a document, suddenly they remember your number, and their voice is dripping with a temporary, manufactured warmth. To be clear, mutual support and helping one another are the very bedrock of healthy human relationships. The problem arises when the dynamic becomes entirely one-sided. Carl Jung would argue that when someone interacts with you only when it directly benefits them, it reflects a deep-seated projection. They are no longer seeing you, a whole, complex person with your own needs, limits, and feelings. Instead, they are seeing a function, a solution to their immediate problem. In their mind, you have been stripped of your humanity and reduced to your utility. This dynamic can become increasingly common as we age. For some adult children, friends, or younger relatives, watching a parent or elder navigate their later years can activate a confusing cocktail of guilt, frustration, and even suppressed anger. They may resent your perceived financial stability or, conversely, your growing neediness. They may resent the simple, powerful reminder that they too will one day be old. To cope with these uncomfortable feelings, they subconsciously rewrite the rules of the relationship. You will be available to help me when I call, but otherwise, you should remain quietly in the background.
This is a critical point. You are allowed to expect more. You are allowed to desire warmth, reciprocal care, and a real human connection, not just a role as a utility service. Acknowledging this desire does not make you needy. It makes you human. So, if you notice that someone in your life only appears when they have a need and vanishes the moment the transaction is complete, do not write it off as just how they are. That pattern is speaking a quiet, painful truth that beneath the surface, resentment may have replaced genuine affection. You deserve more than to be needed. You deserve to be valued. If you are still with us and finding these insights helpful, please show your support by commenting with the number 6 below. And if you have not yet subscribed, please consider doing so and hitting the notification bell. Your support fuels our mission to create content that provides clarity and inspires positive change. Sign 7. The dismissal of your beliefs and joys. This final sign often cuts deeper than all the others because it targets the very core of who you are. It hides behind casual comments, condescending smirks, and quiet laughter. When someone close to you begins to mock or belittle the things that bring you joy, meaning, or solace, or worse, the core values that have shaped your entire life, it is rarely just a harmless joke. It is a profound reflection of a dark undercurrent in your relationship. Carl Jung wrote extensively about the human shadow, those parts of ourselves we refuse to acknowledge, the feelings we push down only to have them surface as projections onto others. One of the most common and cruel forms of projection is ridicule. When someone teases or belittles something you hold sacred, your faith, your morning meditation routine, your political convictions, or your choice to dress up nicely even when you're just staying home, it may not be about you at all. It may be a direct broadcast of the resentment they carry toward their own life or the intense discomfort they feel when faced with someone who has found a measure of peace. Let's look at the story of Harold, an 84-year-old retired music teacher. Every morning, without fail, he plays the piano for an hour, and every Sunday he attends church. These rituals center him, keep his mind sharp, and connect him to something larger than himself. But his son, now in his 50s and grappling with his own career anxieties, constantly teases him about it. "Still talking to the big guy upstairs, Dad? You think he's keeping score at your age? You're really getting all dressed up just to play piano in the living room for no one?" These might sound like offhand jokes to an outsider, but for Harold, over time, they are tiny acts of desecration. The real message simmering beneath the surface isn't humor, it's a profound discomfort, perhaps even a form of jealousy. A Jungian analyst would say that the son isn't truly laughing at his father, he is laughing at and trying to diminish the parts of himself he has failed to reconcile, his own aging, his lack of personal discipline, his spiritual emptiness. Instead of confronting his own inner conflict, it is easier to mock the man who seems to have found peace in those very areas. And here is the devastating cost. When your beliefs are mocked, when your simple joys are dismissed as trivial, you begin to shrink. You might stop sharing stories about your passions. You might stop talking about what truly moves you. And slowly, almost without realizing it, you become a smaller, more muted version of yourself in their presence. That is not love, that is not respect, and it is certainly not a safe or healthy relationship. This doesn't mean every offhand joke is rooted in deep-seated hatred. But if it is a persistent pattern, if nearly every time you express an authentic part of yourself, it is met with sarcasm, condescension, or a dismissive wave of the hand, do not ignore it. Carl Jung believed that the shadow only grows in power when it is left unacknowledged. In relationships, it shows up in these quiet, painful dismissals that chip away at the soul. You have an inalienable right to feel proud of your beliefs, your habits, and your daily joys. You have earned them through a lifetime of experience, of living, failing, learning, and surviving. No one gets to belittle that, not even someone who shares your blood or your history. True love and respect do not mock, they honor, even when they do not fully understand. If someone in your life regularly undermines the very things that light you up, it may be time to step back and ask the hard question: why do they need to dim your light to feel comfortable in their own skin? You deserve better. You deserve the space to be your whole self, fully and unapologetically. Getting older is not merely a story of wrinkles and slower steps. It is a journey into heightened awareness, a process of becoming more finely attuned to the quiet, complex symphony of human interaction. And sometimes, the most painful and liberating realizations are not about the changes in our bodies, but about the true nature of the people we once trusted with our hearts. Carl Jung gave us a map for this journey when he said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." That truth has never mattered more than it does now. Because if we are not paying attention to these hidden signs, the jokes that sting, the help that humiliates, the silence that isolates, we risk normalizing behavior that systematically eats away at our peace, our confidence, and our very sense of self. We risk calling this slow emotional erosion fate, or just the way things are. If you recognized even one of these 7 signs in a relationship in your life, please know this: you are not overreacting. You are waking up, and that awakening is a source of immense power. It means you still possess the strength to draw new boundaries, to protect your heart, and, if necessary, to walk away from people who may share your last name or your history, but do not share a genuine concern for your well-being. The profound wisdom that comes with age is not just about what we know. It is about what we are no longer willing to tolerate. We do not owe anyone our endless, blind forgiveness, especially when the harmful behavior is ongoing. What we owe ourselves is dignity. We owe ourselves clarity. We owe ourselves the emotional and mental space to breathe freely. And remember this as you move forward. Being a kind person does not mean you have to be a blind one. You can love people from a safe distance. You can forgive for your own peace without re-entering the fire. You can stand tall in your truth even if, for a little while, it means you must stand alone. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive today. We would be honored to hear from you. Please leave a comment below and share one thing you learned or recognized today, and perhaps how you plan to use that insight in your life. Your thoughts and experiences are incredibly important to us and to this community. Reading your comments gives us immense motivation and encouragement. If you enjoyed this video and found it helpful, please show your support with a like, by subscribing to the channel, and by sharing it with someone who might need to hear this message. Your support is what helps us continue creating good, insightful content to inform and inspire. Thank you for watching.